Okay. Okay, we're live.
We're good.
Welcome to Bibliomancy for beginners, people. We're usually 4 college friends who like to talk about books, but today we're only 2 college friends who like to talk about books. The best of the best today.
Precisely.
This week we read, I think the full title is Rumo and His Miraculous Adventures.
That is the full title.
Good.
By Walter Mowers.
By Walter Mowers. And
heft my massive hardcover.
oh gosh. I have the paperback. And I'm going to read to you what the back of this says in case you have not read Rumo and would like to know what it is about. Rumo is a little Wolperting who will one day become the greatest hero in the history of Zamonia. Armed with Dandelion, his talking sword, he fights his way across Overworld and Netherworld, 2 perilous regions chock full of adventures and unforgettable characters. Rala, a beautiful girl Wolperting who cultivates a hazardous relationship with death. Gornab the 99th, the demented king of the Netherworld. Urs
I always read it as.
Okay. Urs of the Snows, who thinks more of cooking than of fighting. Professor Ostafin Colibri, who goes in search of the non-existent teenies. Ushan DeLuca, the finest and most weather-sensitive swordsman in Zamonia, and worst luck, the deadly metal maiden. That was a long list of things that I don't feel had an ending. Like,
nonsensical.
Yeah, that makes no sense to anybody who has not read this. Here, have a list of mostly random words.
Exactly. Because, like, the main way this story is told is by introducing, like, the plot point and then going on a 2-page digression about, just explaining what this means.
Yeah.
Just history and description and just really long things, and then he has a picture that he drew.
Yep.
Walter Mowers illustrated and wrote this. He did not, however, translate it from the German.
Does this say who translated it from German on it?
Yes.
Translated from German. John Brown John.
Who did an excellent job, actually, because this is such a wordy and actually really pretty book. It's impressive that it translated so well. Also, side note, I just discovered the other day that not only do I have a first edition, it's an English edition from when it was first translated. So that was exciting.
Ooh, aren't you special?
More special than you right now. So you'll need to one up that.
Not with this book, I can't.
Fair enough.
So we'll do that.
Before I get more distracted by this book, should we do introductions?
Yes, probably. That's what I was just going to say.
Okay.
I guess I'll go first since the 2 people who go otherwise don't go.
Take the lead on this one.
Yeah. I'm Michaela. You might know me from my blog, The Pied Piper Calls, or Tumblr, where I'm Ravens in the Night Sky, or Twitter, where I'm at Pied Piper Calls. I write about books, and on Sundays I write about K-pop. Because I can, and I like that, so I do. Yes. That's all I got.
I'm Taylor, also English major, writing minor. I am drinking one of my favorite teas, which is Lapsang Souchong, and I'm currently drinking it from one of my grandmother's bird mugs. So I can learn to identify the tufted titmouse and the prothonotary warbler and great crested flycatcher, none of which I knew were birds before.
You didn't know what tufted titmouse was?
Okay, I knew what a tufted titmouse was. I can barely even read prothonotary warbler, though. It's in this terrible cursive, so I don't think that's even the name.
Oh, yeah. Are you in New Hampshire now?
I am in New Hampshire. It's very dark, so I can't give you a dramatic landscape view.
But he's in New Hampshire, guys. It's different from last time. I also might be eating throughout this because I just got back from going grocery shopping and I didn't have a chance to eat dinner. So apologies if that distracts you. I don't mean to, but I need to eat, otherwise I will be sad. We're gonna give our spoiler-free overall impressions of the book. So I guess I'll just go first. Woo! I really enjoyed it, despite being super sick this week. Like, it wasn't like I was super sick and then I was like, now I have to read this book. It was like I was super sick and I was like, well, at least I can read this book. And be taken away from the fact that I'm super sick slightly, just a little bit. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was fun and funny at times and cute at other times, and it was just good. It was good. It was good. I liked it. Read it.
Before I give my impression, I need to ask, do you have a laptop on your lap right now?
Yes.
Because you have this constant bouncing of the screen.
Oh, I don't have anything.
Roll it.
Hold on, I'll move. You talk, I'll move.
Mesmerized by this.
Bouncy, 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 bouncy. Oh no, there's things here. Dang it! Poster. Better.
Yes, looks to be better right now. Right. So this was, as I believe was mentioned, if not this meeting, the previous one, my choice. And this, month we were all reading books we had already read before, so I was really excited to get back into Rumo. Walter Mowers has two other books, two that I've read, set in this universe, and they're all very interconnected in characters and locations.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read those much more, frequently. Mm-hmm. So, Rumo, which was the first one I read, which was years ago, it was really fun to get to read it again, because it's so, just basically wonderful. It's a lot of fun. It's always interesting, and there's so much weird stuff just packed in there.
Mm-hmm.
Read it!
Good. Okay, now I'm going to say that if you haven't read the book, you should probably go away, because we're going to be talking about it in detail, unless you don't mind being spoiled for stuff.
But if you go away, don't go away forever. Just, read the book first.
And then come back.
Because we have things to say.
Yeah, we have things to say.
We have opinions and things.
we have opinions and things. Alrighty. There also might be swearing, but Rachel's not here, so there's probably going to be less swearing.
Yeah.
The first thing we should talk about, I guess, is our favorite parts. And
Oh.
Are you excited?
I'm so excited. There's so much to say. So much stuff. You had something to get into first.
Yes. My favorite part is less a scene, and the fact that even from the beginning of the novel, I could tell that everything that was being said was going to be important at some point. Even though it seemed like a complete tangent, I was like, this is going to be looping around at some point. It's going to be important. There's a reason he's saying this. It's not just a fun, jaunty little side vert that we're going to come back to the main plot with. It's important, and I really enjoy books like that because it gets me to sort of start placing things in my mind and trying to organize it in a way that I'm like, the story is going to be super cool. The story is going to be super cool. It's like all the little chess pieces are going out on the board. So I really enjoyed that part of the book.
Yeah, I have to agree because there's just, so much meat to it, and all of it's really fantastical and new, and it's not really seen in other books in these weird ways, but he always makes it, relevant. So It's not, see how creative I am, guys? He's actually making that thing.
Mm-hmm.
That I felt like one of my, the reasons I was nervous of just having us as a book club read the first half, which is why I'm glad that us two are the only ones here, read the entirety. There are so many things that are set up in the beginning, like general TikTok in the first 100 pages, that don't come until some pages in.
And if you don't read the like last bit of it, you would just be like, that was a weird tangent about a castle. Interesting.
Exactly. So a lot of them are the long game. So while they're interesting, they would have just been left there, but he definitely brings it back.
Mm-hmm. Do you have another favorite part? Because you got excited.
Oh, that was my favorite part. I have a few things that I actually want to bring up, and okay. I would love for you to chime in on them.
Okay.
Because one of the parts I always liked the most, or I always found the most interesting, was, I guess, Rala's perspective when she's trapped in the Metal Maiden. And she's kind of, pinned there, unmoving, and it's all the general TikTok deaf pianist thing going on, but she's got her own deal going on, and I always found that really interesting because, I don't know, when she actually goes into her bloodstream with the ghost spirit of her bear friend and mentor, I'm like, cool,
rocking it.
Yes. Although I have to say, my favorite part has always been the Merkholm segment, which is almost entirely through Colibri's, I guess, journal.
Right.
That Smike is reading. And, you have some Smike doing things, but it's always seeing, like, Colibri's weird descent into madness. And just those very bizarre moments that I love. I suppose that I find people going insane, like, steadily over the course of a story or like a series of things. Very interesting, but it was funny. It was creepy. Actually, Smike's journeys, that whole chapter, I suppose. So they also have when he's at the gargantuan Bolog skull or whatever it was, and, drinking that weird wine and having a conversation with himself. I always found that part to be the coolest. Rumo was okay, I guess. But
the greatest hero in the entire world, according to the back of this book. He was alright. It was fine.
He doesn't like to talk very much,
He doesn't, no.
He's a great straight man, and he does actually have personality, which is nice. But he's just very, a simple-minded fellow.
I agree.
Someone tells him to carve a cask for his beloved and like kill something dangerous and go into like the most deadly area in the near region, and he's like, yeah, okay. It's really a good idea.
Alright, bro, I got you. Yeah.
Actually, as we move into characters, right?
Favorite characters, I believe, is next. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we should probably point out that there aren't really humans in this setting. I mean, there are, but they don't really show up.
Yeah.
13 and a Half Lives of Captain Bluebear has a world map, if you will, and I believe the content of Zamonia continent syllables of Zamonia where this takes place is kind of tucked into, the area west of South America.
Okay.
And there are a bunch of random continents that just kind of sink, is how it's addressed. But unimportant, so you have Wolpertings, which are actually massive. Like, I think they're somewhere around like 8 feet tall when standing on their back legs, which is terrifying. Because they're these massive humanoid dog creatures.
Yeah. It's like, I guess the way that I always sort of imagine it in my head was what paranormal romance authors describe the like half wolf, half man form of werewolves, where like some of them gets all furry and gross, but they also are like still sort of like built slightly like a human and think like a human, but they've got the huge jaws and teeth and
I mean
paws sometimes, claws.
Something I found interesting is that he never gives us more than a head illustration. Really?
At least not of a grown-up one, because you get to see Rumo as a puppy in his entirety, but I think
like the hairless little rat.
Yeah.
That he was.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just means you could kind of phase away imagining what these actually operate as.
Yeah.
I still find 8 feet tall horrifying. It just, ugh.
You wouldn't want to be staring that in the face?
No.
No? See, that seems
I
like
mean,
the most fun time to me. Like, just being like, hey, you're large and scary.
I would be totally fine with these being the most deadly, fast, like clever creatures, and also have horns. And I would be totally fine with that, as long as they were like, a more reasonable size.
Only like 6 feet tall. Like not 8 feet, 6 feet.
Precisely. Thank you.
I'm trying to think. How tall do bears get? Bears are like 8 feet tall, right? When they stand up on their hind legs?
Yeah.
Or like grizzlies, at least. I don't know about smaller bears.
Grizzly can probably, I don't know. Polar bears, I think, can be 12 feet tall when standing. I've seen some pretty big polar bears.
Yeah. We only have black bears around here, and they're pretty small.
Yeah.
And by small, I mean like the size of like a large dog, but not like a chihuahua small.
They're still pretty.
They're pretty big, but compared to other bears, because I was like, it's like a wolf the size of a bear, was what I was going to say.
They're like the losers of the bear family.
The losers of the bear.
Because they're relatively small. They're cowards. They don't wade out into the Appalachian rivers and hunt salmon.
No.
They probably do. It doesn't matter. Rumo.
But that was what I was going to say. Was that the Wolpertings is like a wolf the size of a grizzly, a large bear.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's still something that we can. It's not outrageously large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just uncomfortable with it. That's all. Personal boss. Don't take it from much.
Yeah.
So who's your favorite character?
Or characters. I liked them all. No. Well, yes. Yes, in a way, yes.
Yeah. Also, a lot of them come in pairs, if you will.
That's true.
So, since you have the Crindle Dandelion, demonic warrior, little tiny troglodyte troll, formed into one kind of dinky sword.
Yeah.
I'd say that counts as one.
I think I really liked. I think it's because I can sort of connect with Smike. I was like, you little chubby thing that just hates everything and likes to learn stuff. I like you. You're fun. Complain a bit, but whatever. It's fine. What else? I guess I liked General TikTok as an antagonist. The idea of that.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed in the sense that he was created to do a job and immediately did the opposite of that job and then just went off and was like, you know what, I'm gonna do my own thing and be crazy, and that's just whatever.
And he was crazy.
He was definitely crazy.
Becoming the most deadly thing he could, and he was proud of. I meanwhile am shit out of luck because you took my 2 things.
Those were your 2 things?
I was gonna be like, well, General TikTok is one of the most interesting characters for me. I think Smike is my favorite, though.
Yeah.
And you did that in reverse order, exactly as I would, and
Secretly, Taylor and I are the same person, so.
Yes, I don't think that's been addressed in the book club, but it is true. I will say, I thought Rala was pretty cool. If nothing else, then the scene where she decides, oh, I'm going to throw myself into the river when none of my species is able to swim, because then he'll jump in and save me and I know he'll love me. And it's that moment where you realize, despite all this deadly, cool, calm demeanor, she is a dolt, just like Rumo. And they are perfect for each other for just that reason. They're incredibly determined, deadly creatures who lack common sense.
They're not stupid. They learn incredibly fast. They just make really poor decisions sometimes and don't quite follow common sense ever.
And I love that because then you realize that, oh, this is why they're fated to be together.
You guys are perfect. Just kiss already. Just kiss.
And I suppose that, that always amused me. I don't know.
Anything?
Now that I'm scrabbling for another talking point,
do you have any least favorite part or rants? Anything that bothered you about this book? I know it's your favorite pick, but the two people that we were expecting to have issues with the book aren't here, so...
Gosh, what a disappointment. I don't get to argue with Gretchen about it.
I was gonna say, I was about to say, should I text her and see if she has any qualms? But she didn't read it, so she can't have any qualms with it. Nope. So.
And that, I suppose, is our pot shot of the video. She didn't read it at all.
Everybody text Gretchen and harass her for not reading the book. And Rachel. Although you can't text Rachel. Send Rachel asks on Tumblr, being like, hey, we all wanted to see you get upset, and you weren't there.
Oh, you know what I didn't like? Actually, one thing I didn't like, and just some other side commentary, I found parts of the Netherworld in Rumo's journey, primarily the frigid caves. Like, where he's walking across the frozen lake, and then there are the two ice giant things that he needs to fight. I always found that incredibly boring. And, of course, it goes to show how dangerous this place is. But all the other moments of that actually had context within the rest of the stories. Because, he sneaks by the Vrahawk cavern where all the 10-story high things are, and he needs to fight them. But that, introduces these things that have been alluded to for 200 pages, and then they come later is very important. The frigid caves were just completely, isolated. They had no play in the rest of the narrative, and that was kind of a very unusual thing in this.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially since I just said that my favorite part was the way that everything sort of had like a tie back somewhere else. I see what you mean. It was definitely... It was like they... Just a scene plugged in there to be like, ooh, fancy. Special, dangerous, ooh.
Yeah, so I suppose that's where I kind of...
Yeah.
Actually, this is coming from me who have read a lot of, I've read 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear and The City of Dreaming books, both of which are fantastic. This book is very abnormal in that it actually, not only does it have a lot of fighting in it, fighting features a lot into the actual resolution of the plot. And that is because, Wolpertings are, very good at fighting, and that's really their shtick amongst several other things. But this whole narrative is about fighting, and none of his other stories are.
What are they about? Tell me.
Like, it's... The conflicts are all things that are overcome, through daring feats or, thinking, but it never really comes down to, I'm going to punch you.
Right.
His other two protagonists are not fighters in the least. In the City of Dreaming books, he actually has one of the lindworms, so the ancient dinosaur things. Yeah. So the main character is a scholar, and he wanders off to this city that's entirely devoted to books. And so there's like this whole seedy underbelly of, conspiracy that's going on. And this guy, he's kind of overweight. He's trying to write a nice novel. And, fighting goes on, but it's never him, and it's never really directly associated with the resolution. And it never really bothered me in Rumo before, because I just kind of took it as a norm because it was the first one I read. But going back to it, it just seems very odd that this is such a
Violent.
heavy, yeah, and that.
Not
So,
like gore violent, but like violent compared to the others.
the big things are all resolved through fighting, and it struck me as kind of boring. I don't know.
What
'Cause
is this?
it's
This
so
is this the second
Go on.
one that he wrote, or is this the first one?
Yeah. The second one.
Second one. And you think that it's just because our protagonist and the namesake of this book is a fighting?
Yeah, because it is a different narrative, but you know, I always saw Mower's skill as, world building and exotic things, and I guess his fighting just doesn't interest me.
I haven't read the other one, so I can't say if I would be more interested in that. I usually am so inclined, though. If there's really good world building, I don't need to have a lot of action. So I will take your word, and hopefully I can read one of the other ones and post a book review of that on my blog at some point. I was supposed to do that this week, but I was sick, so sorry. Sorry,
And
guys.
I would be delighted to join on that book review or manifest, but believe you me, there are certainly action packed to the extreme. It's just,
Not the main character.
not actually fist.
No fisticuffs.
But it's just, it manifests in different ways that I find are more engaging and interesting.
Yes. I think the only time... I'm about to go on a tangent. I think the only time where I would have preferred a fight to, like, debating was the last Twilight book. Because that was the most boring... Like, the entire book was ramping up to a fight, and you're like, oh my god, there's going to be this huge fight. And then there wasn't a fight, and you're like, okay. That's the only time I have ever been like, that wasn't an interesting way out of a fight. So I'm sure that it's obviously more interesting to see how things get weeded around fighting.
I don't think that's a universal comment for me. That, wow, like, that fighting was really boring. I'm not normally like that. Gosh, why do we need a fight? But I guess I've been spoiled by Mower's other narratives where, I don't know.
It's just not as strong.
Is different. I suppose 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear has a story where the main character works as, a gladiator of sorts, but it's two people telling stories. And they're trying to trump the other person's stories with the more outlandish thing.
Oh, interesting.
So I thought Rumo would be a better introduction to this world for, like, book club readers, although apparently Blue Bear is the first one and probably the best introduction. Still, I think there are a lot cooler things going on than some of the other ones.
I understand. So go read those too, audience.
Yeah. God, I want to go read Blue Bear again.
Are there any specific main characters that we didn't really talk about that we want to talk about?
Well, I mean, it's full of, wonky characters. Like, we could, we could talk about Rolf briefly.
Okay.
Like, who's to be the big, the big villain, I guess, to Rumo's experience in Wolperting, and then it's like resolved with this back alley kerfuffle, and then they go, like, happily go about their lives.
Yeah.
And I don't think that really bothers me. It just kind of amuses me.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah.
It's set up to be so, like, this big rivalry over time, but then, like, even when they're having their disagreements, you have Urs, who's Rumo's friend, just having a casual conversation with Rolf's friends. And then when they both pucker themselves out with fighting for 12 hours, one of Rolf's friends just helps carry Rumo home and tuck him in.
They're very amicable enemies. They're like frenemies, I guess. And or they're like those two people in your friend group that argue all the time that you just kind of accept that they're gonna be that way and like live around it.
That or they've convinced themselves they're like the ultimate enemies, and no one just takes them seriously. They're like, oh yeah, at it again. And
No,
I found
yeah.
that so interesting in that Rumo is divided into those two parts, with overworld and underworld, and the difference being, I guess the divider being when all the Wolvertings are, abducted and taken down to hell to fight to the death as gladiators, and these stories just seem so different in how their climaxes work. I guess because the book itself begins with all the demonicals, so there's that massive slaughter that begins it, and then there's all this fighting at the end, and then the middle is just kind of, the first book ends with kind of meandering out, people, normal conflicts.
Yeah.
And suddenly everyone's going to die, and there's going to be this massive war.
I agree.
Did it strike you as odd? Or rather...
Thinking about it now, yes. When I was reading it, I don't think so. I think that when I was reading it, I was too involved in the story and how the story was progressing. I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I was going, gosh, there was so much fighting in the beginning, and now there's not so much fighting, and then at the end be like, oh, the fighting's back. I don't think I thought about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there was nothing wrong with it. It didn't have a weird flow. Like, it wasn't the innocent mage. Some of the worst, which probably had the worst pacing we have ever read in our book club. And that includes The City of 1,000 Dolls. Which is just poorly written but properly paced.
Yeah. I guess I can kind of compare this to how the girl who circumnavigated Fairyland in the ship of her own making was, in that it was a bunch of sort of like moving places and having little shuffles along the way that led to a huge shuffle at the end. It's in pacing that way, but I don't even know. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think it's weird. I don't.
No, although this did just bring to mind something I might actually have an issue with, because I've had all these very long rants that are probably about half of our video.
Yeah.
But I always come back to the point where I'm like, but I guess that doesn't really bother me. Something that really did weigh on me reading this is, oh my god, this book's climax takes forever. It was like 300 pages. It was almost all of the second book.
Yeah.
All of these conflicts going on at the same time, and it's just getting more and more dramatic, and it just... By the time the Vrahawks all march off to conquer the overworld, it just felt like... He's like, well, I mean, I introduced this as an issue, so I need to resolve it, so it's not a loose thread that's, like, gonna become an issue of, well, I guess that means they're still gonna go conquer it, but it's just... It felt so much spring cleaning by the end.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just gonna... I'm from North Dakota, saying yeah all the time.
Alright.
Well, it's because I think it's because I'm tired. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's definitely not one of those books where you get to the last 20 pages and the climax still hasn't been... Like, you're still in rising action and you're like, what? It's definitely not one of those books.
Like Innocent Mage, where she suddenly realized, like, well, fuck, I need a
yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely not like that. But
no.
Do you think it's too slow of a climax? Because it takes... Because it happens
slow,
early on?
It's too drawn out.
And
that, I think, is because he had just so many character and plot threads going on that it had to be that long, but it was just so extended, and it really falls into my issue with Good Omens, which we read 2 weeks ago, or 2 sessions ago, a little more than 2 weeks ago, where entertaining the whole time, the climax just took forever.
Yeah. 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 I'm doing it again! Dang it! Stop saying things that I agree with! I can't talk, I just say yeah over and over again.
Give me a rant, Michaela.
I don't have one. Okay, give me a second.
Alright, what's next on the... What do we have on the list of things to discuss?
Setting. Do we want to talk about our phantasmical continent?
Where to begin with setting? This is all just so... Like, ooh, I had an idea for here. Ooh, then that can be a thing. This will be a thing.
Do you think that he's the type of person that draws the map after he writes the book to include everything that he came up with, or drew the continent and then wrote the book?
I've never been asked that question before. I've never even wondered that question.
See? I have contributed, folks. I contributed a useful question and didn't just say yeah.
I have to say, the thought I have given this thing is he seems the kind of writer who comes up with a name for something and then works from there. So
I can see that.
Something like, you know what, I'm going to have a thing called the non-existent teenies and work from there.
Whatever, we'll figure out what that is along the way. Whatever it is. It's just going to be a thing. No, because, okay, it seems sort of like the way, for me, it seems sort of like the way that I DM when I DM a campaign, in that...
In Dungeons & Dragons, we should specify for our...
Yes. Well, technically Pathfinder, because that's what we've been using, but yes, any sort of tabletop fantasy role-playing.
For the common folk, who must pick up on any familiar word. Pathfinder does not have many cultural footholds.
It's true. Dungeons & Dragons, you know what that is. Nerd stuff.
Yes.
In that I will have, like, names of places, and I sort of have a general idea of what's around those places, but I don't always... Like, my characters might decide to go... Not my characters. The players' characters might decide to go somewhere that I don't have a plan for. And I feel like that's sort of like how this is in the... Like, an author sense of... There were just some places where he was like, well, I don't really have any... We'll just put this over there. That's fine. That's just going to go over here, and they'll have fun there, and that's fine. Not so much like I planned out this huge world and then move my characters around it. My characters go places, and I sort of plop down a place where they go.
So what you're saying is that he has all these places, and then he'll just find a spot for it?
Right. It's not like set, or at least not to begin with, set in a specific place in conjunction with other places.
Oh, that's fair. Because at first it sounded more like it was, okay, I need something here, so I'll just make something up. And it definitely more
not that random. That would be, if somebody could actually write a really good book that way, it would be great, but I don't think anybody could do that. There's too much this hand gesture for somebody to write not knowing what's going on.
That sounds more like a first draft kind of thing.
Yeah. But that's how I feel. So I guess somewhere in the middle. He has places. Those places don't necessarily have a placement. If that makes sense right away. Yeah.
That definitely makes sense to me, because it's, almost like he has a lot of locations that just happen to have land connecting them.
Yeah.
He never really worries about the in-between spaces. He's like, it's wilderness. They won't...
There's trees. Look to your left, you got some dirt. Some dirt over there. Woo.
And as a result, he just doesn't worry about... He doesn't waste time with talking about weeks spent traversing...
It's not Tolkien.
And then we're here. Also, don't you speak ill of Tolkien. That map was beautifully fleshed out.
I have nothing wrong with Tolkien and his worlds. I'm just saying this is not it. Yes? Am I wrong?
True.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I also add that just how impressed I am that all of these random names translated so well? And just that not only did
Are they
the
different in German, or did he just use the random German names?
I
Are they
mean they were
different?
in German. I mean like not character names, but I mean like description of places and
Oh, okay.
names that are kind of a play on things like
Yeah.
Merkel, which murky. It's
Yeah.
the location. A lot of it would have to have been translated, I'm sure. I haven't read a German text. But then you have so many things that actually just seem really streamlined. And then I suppose I'm crediting the translator for actually having an imagination. Because you
Yeah.
have Gordon, who speaks with all of his syllables out of place, and this guy did it perfectly.
Yeah.
So I'm just really happy that this is such a well done translation.
I haven't. Okay. One of my goals for this summer was to read more translated texts because I myself haven't read as many, and I can't speak to poorly translated texts because I don't know that I've read any poorly translated texts, but can definitely see what you're saying in that it could have been done real bad. Like there's a lot of room for error in translating something that doesn't exist because there isn't it's not cut and dry. You can't just say, okay, that's the word for this and make it English. You have to come up with an English fantasy equivalent. So yeah.
Yeah, it's all the more impressive, as you said, because it is fantasy. Because when you
Yeah.
get normal, based in history, very realistic novels, I'm going to use The Immortalists by Andre Gide, because that's something I've read two translations of.
Mm.
Um, I have read a terrible Dover Thrift translation that was done from the French, and it was
Mm.
just so incredibly boring because there wasn't really any poetry carried over like in the
So
original.
it was like cut and dry. This is what this sentence would be in English, as opposed
Exactly.
to okay, yeah,
It just wasn't an interesting portrayal of the text,
yeah,
whereas Rumo was just so rich,
yeah.
interesting. It's nice,
Does the
and
same guy translate the other books as well?
probably
Probably.
I
It'd,
do not
it'd
have
be
any with
yeah.
over the to confirm.
Hold on. I will look it up on Goodreads. You can continue talking about the
Oh, I
translations.
will also say I was mentioning before we went live how Rumo has a lot of references to just random things that happen in Captain Blue Bear, because Blue Bear kind of sits like on either end of Rumo as far as a timeline goes. Rumo's like squat in the middle, and so you have all these events that are kind of referenced and joked about because Blue Bear was written first. But you also have a lot of plot points that come to be in City of Dreaming books with characters and locations and everything, and some that hadn't even been written yet. So I actually, now that we've discussed it, have to wonder whether that was simply a translation thing with Betaville, I think it was, which became Bookholm, and whether that was the author deciding, you know what, this is going to be a better name for it now that I'm actually focusing on it, or whether that was just kind of a translation thing that happened and no one really cared because it was mentioned twice.
Mm.
Wow, that was a really boring digression.
You're so boring. What is this called? City of Dreaming books. That's the one
Yes.
that you were just saying that you weren't sure if it was a issue or.
Yeah, or just like, a random translation thing, or whether the author was like, you know what, I talked about all these things, I like these things, I don't
That
like all of these names.
That was translated by John Brown John as well. So I'll assume that the first one was also translated by John Brown John.
John Brown John, if you ever see this video, good job.
A+. We should see if we can find him on Twitter and tweet at him.
Yes. I will track down John Brown John, his delightful last name.
He's like Wu Tae Woon. I just realized he's like Wu Tae Woon, John Brown John.
And very similar to Jean Valjean.
Oh my god! How many?
But it's one of the actual moments where he was simply named in reference to his own last name, and it was deliberate, and it was a pun in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a wonderful name that rolls off the tongue, and this conversation leads me to think we might be ready to wrap up the video.
Probably. Because I believe we talked about setting. It was interesting. We talked about other books by the author and whether we would read them or not. We talked about translations because this is a translated text. I believe that's everything. I think we have touched on everything. And, I mean, we've only been talking for 47 minutes, but there's only 2 of us, so I'll say that's fair.
We could probably have talked for significantly less and had just as much meat in our content.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Next week we're going back to my pick, which, if I can pull it down off of the bookcase, is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline.
Yes.
Which is significantly shorter, and we'll be talking about it on Tuesday, hopefully, even though that's only 3 days from now, because, like I said, this is significantly shorter.
Yeah, my library still get it.
If Taylor doesn't get it, we'll push back a couple days. But
as soon as I get it, I will read it as quickly as possible. But give us a quick plot summary, because I actually do not know it.
Okay.
That might draw me.
In the year 2044, reality is an ugly place. The only time teenage Wade Watts really feels alive is when he's jacked into the virtual utopia known as Oasis. Cyberpunk dystopia. Wade's devoted his life to studying the puzzles hidden within the world's digital confines, puzzles that are based on the creator's obsession with the pop culture of decades past, and that promise massive power and fortune to whoever can unlock them. So basically, dude creates a giant open-world virtual reality video game. He's super obsessed with 80s pop culture, which is why I'm going to love this book so much.
That guy? Pop culture.
80s pop culture. I'm on top of this, guys. And he basically hides a bunch of Easter eggs, and when he dies, he says, whoever gets to the end of all of these Easter eggs gets my fortune that he made off of that. So our main character is trying to win that race. And Taylor and my friend Anna is going to join us for that live stream because she read this book and would like to talk about it with us. So we will have a guest bibliomancer. So even if our other 2 bibliomancers decide that they don't want to do things again, we'll have 3 people because Anna will talk about it. A+.
Yeah. So basically we'll be reading a cross between dystopian cyberpunk and a game show.
Yes. I would say that.
So that's exciting.
I'm going to assume a less violent Sword Art Online. If people have seen that anime.
Let's hope they haven't seen it.
A lot of people like that anime.
Look, we can throw up another 20-minute video of just me
complaining about Sword Art Online. Okay.
Sword Art Online.
I guess yeah.
Alright.
Poor thing. We'll shout out our social media stuff.
Right.
You can find me at my blog, thepiedpipercalls.wordpress.com, on Tumblr at ravensisthenightsky.tumblr.com, on Twitter at piedpipercalls. Yep, that's everything. Gretchen is at ADK Writer 15 everything. Everything is ADK Writer 15 except for her Facebook, which is My Life is a Notebook. Rachel is whenthetigers-broke-free.tumblr.com. You don't know who they are if this is your first video, but
when the tigers dash could be misconstrued as a word.
Hyphen. When the tigers hyphen broke free.
Sorry.
Your turn.
This is how you will find them and yell at them for not having read Rumo.
Yes. And you should, because this is, not only was it Taylor's pick, but it was Taylor's pick for one of his favorite books of all time, which is really, really sad.
Mm-hmm. They always skip my books. I've noticed.
I still love you.
Okay, my social media is T Greenwood. That's a Twitter handle. And I use that to complain about Socrates and poorly spreadable peanut butter.
It was very entertaining this week in Taylor's Twitterverse.
I lead an exciting life.
Seriously, though, go follow him because he's funny. I'm less funny on Twitter, but I'm around sometimes.
Connected to her life and her blog and K-pop obsession. The K-apocalypse, if you will. All right.
Good guys. It's good.
Going offline? Right?
Yep. Say goodbye. Bye.
Where does Gretchen Teletubby say bye-bye?